Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So I have been away from the news cycle for really just a couple days at the SHOT Show 2025 convention. Came back, and we are about a week into the new administration. And as you all have seen, the southern border is the topic in the news. Makes sense, a lot going on. But then I check VetTube, VetBro YouTube, right? And apparently, unbeknownst to me, I don't know where this started, but Delta Force is about to lead the charge into combat against the cartels. There's probably 100 videos out there about it. Whether it's Delta Force to smash the cartels, or I've seen opposite, cartels will smash Delta Force. And I'm sitting over here going, why does anybody think Delta Force is about to fight the cartels in general? So, I hate to be the guy to tell you Santa Claus isn't real in this video. All right, so we're going to bring ourselves back to reality, talk about why, no, Delta Force is not about to go fight the cartels, right? At least not in the immediate or short term or on any large scale whatsoever. I don't know why we're even talking about it, okay? And I'm going to explain to you guys why. None of that makes sense. And then we'll also, and not just Delta Force, but Special Forces, SEALs, MARSOC, all these units, okay? And I'll explain why it's not going to happen, and also what the plan is obviously turning out to be to sort of combat the cartels at the southern border, because we're kind of seeing it shape and develop over the last week. All right. So, again, I hate to burst bubbles. It's fun, right? It's fun to talk about Tier 1, Delta, smash the cartels. I get it. It gets clicks, it gets views. It's also silly, okay? And we're going to explain to you guys why. All right, first thing we're going to talk about is just feasibility for Delta Force to actually combat the cartels. And I'm not talking about a point target raid situation, tactically, right, individual mission. We'll talk about that here in a second. I'm talking about the feasibility for Delta Force, which apparently nobody really understands how small of a unit Delta Force is, okay? The feasibility for them actually to combat the cartels, which is a multiple criminal enterprise syndicate that spans all throughout all of Mexico, up through the government chains, into America, right? So we got to talk about, just again, size and feasibility, and why this is just a silly thing to talk about to begin with. All right, so how big is Delta Force? Guys, there's only a couple hundred actual Delta Force combat operators, okay? There's obviously a lot more support roles and things like that, but the unit itself is maybe 1,500 people, 2,000, if you include everybody, the operators, the support, the pilots, backside, administrations, okay? That is tiny. Compare that to the Special Forces Regiment, we are probably 10 to 20 times the size of Delta Force, okay? The cartels are massive. They're spanning hundreds of thousands of people involved, if not more than that, okay? 200-300 guys is not about to fight the entire battle against the cartels across both domestically the United States southern border and all the way throughout Mexico. Okay. Also, what is the actual mission scope of Delta Force? All right. Again, they're doing high profile point target raids, hostage rescue, HVT, high value targeting. So, is there potential at some point, and we're going to talk about when this might happen in the next section, that Delta Force gets a mission on an El Chapo-esque figure in Mexico? Sure, maybe a long time from now, okay? But again, guys, Delta Force isn't going to be leading any charges into combat to fight the cartels on any large scale. It's silly. We got to just take a step back and look at things realistically. Now, with that being said, I've also seen a lot of videos about how the cartel is going to smash Delta Force and how the cartel is as equipped and trained as Delta Force. Now, if we're talking about a strictly tactical level, let's say Delta Force does go in to do a hit on some HVT. Guys, there is no feasibility for the cartel to destroy Delta Force. When you add in the actual might of Delta Force with support, with air support and all these different things on a point target hit, they're the best in the world. By far, bar none. The cartel is not standing up to that. Whoever cartel boss is there at that time, they're going bye-bye. Okay? So, silliness. All right? Now, the bigger reason why Not just Delta Force, but U.S. Army Special Forces, SEALs, Rangers, MARSOC, all these different SF units, military units. While yes, obviously the southern border has been declared a national emergency, which allows the SecDef to use the military to combat the cartels, we're still talking about a foreign country. Yes, an allied nation in Mexico. However, we are not about to invade Mexico to fight the cartels. It's not going to happen. We are going to have to work by, with, and through Mexico to action any of this on the Mexican side of the border. And so when people tell you that Delta Force is just going to be unleashed on the cartels, unleashed on what? In the last 4 years, the southern border has been wide open. There's been zero attempts at combating the cartels from the U.S. side. Our intelligence apparatus, while I'm sure great with the CIA, we're not tracking where all of these cartel syndicates and operational bases and leadership are in Mexico. We are going to be reliant, extremely reliant, and I know this because I've done this in foreign countries against the Taliban, right? We are going to be reliant on human sources from Mexico, all these different types of things, the government, their intelligence, to even be able to action a target. Because what is Delta Force even going to go attack? If we don't know where anybody is yet, there's going to be no mission to go accomplish. All right, so you got to think about things like that. Okay, so without actionable intelligence, there is no Delta Force crushing anything. Now, that can be developed, but those things are going to take time. We're not just going to go in there and a month from now, we're just going to know where everybody in the cartel is in Mexico. Now, keep in mind, I've said this before, the cartels aren't like an insurgency. They kind of are, right? But not for political reasons, for obviously economic, drug trafficking, narco trade reasons. But they still have, obviously, access and placement all the way up the chains in Mexican police forces, the military, government, access to politicians. That is a massive, massive can of worms that you don't just send your point target surgical strike team in to fix. Okay? That's not Delta Force's job. They won't be doing any of that. All right? Also, Delta Force typically works on a unilateral scope. They're typically not going to do partnered joint raids with the Mexican police. Okay? Now, Special Forces might find some type of avenue in that 7th group. Again, training, because we do this. We have done this around the world in counter narcotics in different places. But even that is going to take a while for us to cultivate those relationships, build that up, understand the intelligence apparatus, actually start actioning any real targets. And again, dealing with the massive corruption that's inlaid within the entire Mexican government system with the cartels. Will the Mexican government be forced to eventually? Most likely, yes, right? Because America can inlay insane amounts of pressure through tariffs, through all these different things, whether you agree with those politics or not. We can force the hand of Mexico into cooperating. However, there's a lot of self-preservation from all these people that are corrupt, that are involved corruptly, that also don't want to be found out themselves, that this system, this giant cartel organism, is not going to roll over and lay down. Okay, so again, we're talking massive, large-scale, insurgency-level problems here that no, Delta Force is not going to lead the charge in. Now, so does that mean the military won't be involved? No. I think we already see the military as being involved. And surprisingly, who I think is going to have the most involvement in combating the cartels out of anyone in the near term is your regular Army, infantry, Marines, things like that on the southern border itself. Well, I've got a clip already of a gunfight between the cartel and the southern border that just broke out. We'll watch that.
Chilling video now shows a huge shootout. This is at the southern border. Texas DPS says U.S. Border Patrol responding to gunfire from cartel members seeking refuge on an island between the U.S. and Mexico. Texas Lieutenant Chris Oliveira is saying drone operators captured the gunman fleeing Mexico due to military presence. Jorge Ventura is live for us from Mission, Texas. You're on the ground there. What more do we know, Jorge, about these violent encounters and this new order that is in place?
Well, Marty, tense moments really unfolded on the southern border yesterday in Fronton, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley where we are. It's an area notorious for cartel activity and human smuggling. On Monday, around 1:29 p.m., shots were fired at Border Patrol agents from the Mexican side. Agents took cover, they returned fire, and called for backup. This here will be drone footage from Texas DPS showing the suspected cartel members fleeing after firing shots at agents. No one was injured on either side. DHS sources telling News Nation that the cartel members were attempting to smuggle a group across the river, but none of them made it onto U.S. soil. News Nation was the only outlet on the scene as multiple agencies joined Border Patrol agents in the investigation.
All right, so as you can see, we've already started to have a little bit of combat here on the southern border itself. This is what you're going to see the military used for in the short term. We've already deployed, as I believe, 1,500 troops to help guard and secure the southern border. I think that's going to continue to ramp up more and more. And I think what the plan is, as far as I'm seeing it so far, when you look at the way we're handling things domestically, which is pretty much what I said in my last video on this, I thought would happen, is that you have your ICE, your DEA, your FBI, your federal marshals, your border patrol. All these agencies are going to be working on the American domestic side to combat the cartels, start mass deportations. We're already seeing that. And then you completely close and actually secure the southern border in mass scale with the U.S. military. What does that do? Unfortunately for Mexico, it leaves the problem on their side of the border. Now, again, it's going to take a while for us to get there, but that I think is what the near-term plan really is. It's not for the militaries to start going in and doing surgical strikes in Mexico, attacking cartel leadership. It's going to be gutting out the cartels from the American domestic side, completely shutting down the border. And what I think you're going to see is, as the smuggling, obviously human trafficking, all these things, they try to ramp it up because, again, guys, this is a massive multi-billion dollar enterprise, the drug trafficking. Okay, so they're not about to just stop and roll over. Okay, so they got to try to find ways to continue to smuggle things in and do stuff like that. So I think you're going to see more and more combat itself on the southern border between Border Patrol, the military, and the cartels. I think special operations is actually probably really not going to be leveraged in any realistic way for a long time in this type of environment. I know that's kind of surprising to people. You think you'd want to use special operations as much as possible, but again, unless you're going to be going into Mexico and actually trying to action targets and do things like that, you really don't need special operations involved, right? You need to shut down the border. You need to get everybody out through domestic agencies. And that's sort of, I think, what the near plan is going to be. Okay. Because again, for us to go any further into this to combating the cartels on the Mexican side, it's going to take a ton of cooperation between the Mexican government and the United States government, which, again, I think it will be forced, but it's also going to be coerced as well. Like, they are not, most of the Mexican government is tied, not most, but a huge portion of Mexican government officials are tied to the cartel, right? They don't want anything to do with this to stop. That's how way corruption works. And so, yes, it's going to take a long time. Now, I'll also leave you guys with this because I see this comment quite a bit, which is sort of the counter argument that this is the wrong thing to do. In that sense, you have to agree that leaving the southern border completely wide open, letting fentanyl pour in, human trafficking come in, as much as you want, that's a better alternative. We know that's not the case. Okay, so regardless of what you think about the plan in place and the things that are being done, the reality is, even if it's 10%, 20% effective, 20% effective is better than 0% effective, which is what we had for the last 4 years. So at least we're doing something. Something has to be done. Okay. And whether it's going to work in the long term or not, I don't know. But again, you can't just leave the border wide open. I've been watching some of these deportations, and we're going to talk about it on the live stream Friday. The type of people that they're arresting and the charges that they've had that they've just been let back out onto the streets in these sanctuary cities is some of the craziest shit I have ever seen in my life. Blows me away how dangerous we've allowed America to get with the people we've been putting back on the streets. So I support this movement 100%. You don't have to like my politics on that. I don't care. I care about Americans. I care about Americans being safe, American children being safe. And yeah, war on drugs didn't go well the first time. Maybe we can figure out a better way to do it. I don't know. But ultimately, no, Delta Force is not about to go fight the cartels. So just relax a little bit, everybody. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram for more content over there as well. See you guys at the live on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. All right. Take care, everybody.